All right, Ezra.
So, all right, thank you so much. Good day and welcome everyone to the fourth webinar under the Learn with Pukunui series of webinar for 2026. My name is Iza Idris, and on behalf of Pukunui, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. And of course, thank you to our official partner Blindside Network Incorporated for agreeing to this webinar and assisting us with the session. But before we begin, I would like to briefly introduce you to Pukunui. Some of you might have heard us. We are not a generic IT company, but we specialize in Moodle LMS for more than 20 years. We have offices across the Asia Pacific region, our oldest office in Perth, Australia. We also have office in Hong Kong. And this series of webinar is actually managed by the team in Malaysia office here in Kuala Lumpur. So our focus has always been on education, working closely with universities, corporate organizations, and government agencies, as well as NGOs to deliver meaningful and effective learning experiences. We provide end-to-end support from secure LMS hosting and technical support to consultancy, e-learning development, and HRDC claimable training programs. And our goal is simple: to help you not to just use the technology, but to truly enhance teaching and learning. To strengthen the service, we have been working with a few partners, and one of them is the Blindside Network Incorporated for the BigBlueButton web conferencing tool. And today, we are delighted to have our partner to share with us the insights under the topic of the future of virtual classroom built on pedagogy, AI, and analytics with BigBlueButton. And the presenter is not anyone but the co-founder of BigBlueButton and CEO of Blindside Networks himself, Mr. Fred Dixon. Fred, thank you so much for your time and agreeing to this. So everyone, please let me introduce our speaker, Fred Dixon. Fred's work centers on enhancing virtual classroom through the use of AI and learning analytics to improve student outcomes. With over 18 years of experience, he has been at the forefront of developing high interactive and engaging online learning environments. He is a frequent speaker on the role of AI and analytics in shaping the future of virtual education, including collaborations and sessions with partners such as Moodle. Fred is also a strong advocate for open source solution, believing in making high quality online education accessible to all. His approach emphasizes using AI to support, not replace educators, while leveraging real-time learning analytics to better understand and respond to student needs. So without further ado, let us welcome Fred. Over to you, Fred.
Thank you. Thank you, Ezra. All right, so let's do it. So I will always start off with, what is BigBlueButton? And if you came up to me and asked, okay, I heard this BigBlueButton, what is it? It is a virtual classroom designed to ensure every student learns. And I will contrast this with like video conferencing, things that you're probably very familiar with, like Cough, Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, others. If you ask like what was designed about, what drives us? Well, it's a virtual classroom that provides built-in tools for active learning and live analytics to ensure every student learns. Built-in tools, active learning, live analytics. These are not what you would find a video conferencing system focused on. But if you want to teach, the goal of the class is not to meet, it is to learn. And you want to focus on learning. So we are an open source community. This was from like a past developer summit. So we get together twice a year. There's a global group of people that have been working on BigBlueButton and improving it over the years. And it's just it's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life to be working on this project. So I am also the CEO of Blindside Networks. And Blindside Networks, we started the BigBlueButton project in 2007. We have since delivered over 2 billion minutes. And believe it or not, we've been working with Pukunui since 2012. I looked through my emails and I found the earliest email was way back. We're also like a certified service provider for BigBlueButton. So BigBlueButton is the open source project, which you all know and love. Blindside Networks is the company that started the project, and we provide hosting. So we're a commercial company. We grow by making BigBlueButton grow. Okay, so built for education, and this is what I'll sort of talk about here in this presentation. A few other pieces were actually built into the core of Moodle. That happened in 2020. We've been working with Moodle for 10 years. After a while, they said, look, we should just build you guys into the core. And they did, and we never looked back. So some things that you would see in Moodle with BigBlueButton. So the integration is there. You would see the ability to look at all your recordings inside of Moodle. So there's no separate tools, there's no separate logins. There is a simple button to join the session. You get mapped in. If you're a teacher, you get mapped into a moderator. If you're a student, you get mapped into a viewer. So it's just very easy. And like Moodle, we're web-based. There's no software to install. There's no software to download. One of the things we added a while back was activity completion. So it meant that you could tell Moodle, I would like to have this BigBlueButton activity marked as completed when, say, students have been there for more than 90 minutes and maybe they had talked as well. So this is the main slide. Education is changing. Learning hasn't, but education is. There's passive learning, active learning, and authentic engagement. So I would like to talk about AI, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. And I want to see, tell me in the chat what you think about this, whether you agree with me or not. AI has changed how students learn. Would anybody, would you agree with that statement or not? Give me someone type in the chat what they think. Has AI changed how students learn? Okay. Or maybe how to say yes, or how to say AI helps students learn. So let me start off with this. Can anyone tell me what this is? Okay, it's an Oreo cookie. Maybe something more like North America. It's basically an ultra-processed food. It doesn't exist in real, but if you eat it, it tastes really good and your brain wants to eat more. It's basically designed so that you eat. But if you ate a lot of Oreo cookies, it's very predictable what would happen. It wouldn't be so good. So where I'm going with this is lots of AI is like perhaps not so good. So AI is changing how we learn, but does AI help learners learn? I'd like to ask the question. So can AI help you learn? Okay, so there's only 3 choices. It does help you learn more effectively. There's no difference, or it doesn't help you learn. In fact, you learn less effectively. Which of these is which answer do you think is correct? Okay. Okay, so I'll actually make it a bit easier. I'll do this as a poll. So give me your choice. What do you think? Is it A, B, or C? Okay, so here, just that you know, I can see everyone who is responding to the polls in real time. This is one of the values of BigBlueButton, is I get to see the results. So I've got some responses, so I'll publish. So there's no difference. Well, it turns out all 3 of them are correct. I was a bit mischievous by asking you to pick one. And it turns out that it depends on when you learn. So this is the way I think about how AI helps us learn. You have some certain amount of skill. If you're using AI, it helps you learn that skill. You can accelerate your learning. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and AI can help tell you what you don't know. But at some point, if you rely on AI too much, your learning plateaus, and then you stop learning. And the knowledge that you gain starts to seep away because you're offloading what you need to do, or the thinking, to the AI. And at some point down below, you've basically completely offloaded, and that you there's no more changing in your learning. So that's like C. A lot of people will say, look at the benefits of AI with this, but there is this slippery slope, like Oreo cookies. If you do too much AI, you're going to get the negative benefits of it. And it'll actually prevent you from learning. It'll actually stop you. And you see this in the industry as people lean more and more on AI. Okay, so don't take my word for this. There was a study that was done. This is actually over a year ago, almost. So at MIT, they took 54 students, put them into groups of 18, and in each of the groups, they had them split up where one group used AI to write essays, another group just used Google, no AI, and the third group just used their brain. And For 3 months, they had them write, or once a month, they had them write an essay, and they had them come in and hook up to an electroencephalogram, which basically monitored the brain activity. So there was no question. They're not asking, like, are you thinking hard? They just monitored the brain. So what happened? Well, it was kind of predictable. The group that used AI, the reviewers of the essays found them soulless, uncreative, and there really wasn't much brain activity when they were doing it because they were offloading the writing of it. The group that used their brain to write essays, of course, had a lot more brain activity. They could recall what they wrote in the essays, and they actually got, much better essays as a result of it. And then they did something very interesting. They switched it around. So the people that used their brain got to use ChatGPT, and the people that used ChatGPT got to use their brain. What do you think happened? I'll pause for a moment. Like, just think about what you think the results were, and then I'll tell you what they were. Okay. So the people who used ChatGPT to offload had lower brain activity. The use of ChatGPT didn't create the neural pathways and the mental models for writing better essays. There was just no change in their ability to write essays. The people that had used their brain and then were given AI actually had more brain activity, right? And this goes back to this part. They were on the upward slope. They had some initial skills, and the ChatGPT was a multiplicative effect. Obviously, if you have no skills, there's nothing to multiply. 0 times anything is still 0. But for measurement of learning, like brain activity, that's what they found. Use your brain and then augment it with AI. So that particular place there, though, that is a slippery slope because that is where it's cognitive offloading. How do you know you've eaten too many Oreo cookies? How do you know you've watched too much TV, done too much scrolling? It's all very attractive to reduce the effort to write an essay by using AI or an assignment. And I think it's a great disservice to just say to people that, oh, you can use it effectively or properly, right? Let's dig into this a bit more. That part is where cognitive offloading, it's kind of like the event horizon. You don't really know when you crossed it. You just stop. Your brain is just not working as hard. And I would say that's actually not quite true. You will know your brain is not working hard because you'll feel less of a sensation, which I'll talk about in a moment. All right, so AI is accelerating change in students, but it's not so good. So we've had about 20 years of social media, which has increased anxiety among learners. Sometimes I will say kids or young adults, right? Most people are going to school. I think we would all agree that this generation is more anxious than the last generation. COVID-19 was horrible. It isolated us all. TikTok and other similar addiction, dopamine-driven, algorithmic, social media, it took away our attention span. And now AI comes in and you can do cognitive offloading. What chance does the student have? Like, it's really hard to see how students will thrive more effectively in the world with this. Now, I have ways I have belief of how that can occur, but I think you wouldn't be surprised if I said it's not more AI. Okay, so before I talk about learning and what you could do to make more effective learning, why don't we just look at for a moment what learning really is? Okay, so I use this by analogy. If you go to the gym for 1 hour and while you're there, you look at the weights and leave, how much would your muscles grow? Anybody? You stand there for an hour and you look at the weights and leave, how much would your muscles grow? So give me an answer in the chat. Okay. 0. That's correct, right? We can all agree nothing's going to happen. You attend a virtual class for 1 hour. While you're there, you watched and didn't participate. How much would your brain learn? How much would your brain change? How much would you learn? I think we could probably agree there would be more learning if you did more in the class, right? That makes sense because it's a simple analogy or example to the workout, but there's a little bit more that goes on in the brain. So if you were trapped on a desert island and you could take one book with you on learning, I would make it this book. So they did Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. This book was written after 10 years of studies, like tests, not theories, but actual tests and results of what was effective learning. And let me ask, there are basically things that you may already think of learning: underlining, highlighting, rereading, note-taking, or none of the above. Which of these do you think are the most effective technique for learning? And I'll do this again as a poll. Okay. Okay, we got a few. So it turns out the answer is really none of the above, because there are more effective ways. Note taking is good if you do it after the class is over and force recall. But if you just take notes during the class, it becomes more of a transcription. Learning is more than transcribing, highlighting, and rereading. So it turns out that these in studies turned out to be more effective. So which of these are the most effective? Active learning, active recall, or spaced repetition, or all of the above? And again, I'll ask. All right. I think you guys are getting on to me. It's all of the above. So why are these more effective? So I could just say that they're more effective and move on, but there's actually a little bit more that's going on in the brain. Your brain actually has two modes. So if you were trapped on a desert island and you could choose a second book, I would recommend this one, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. And in that, Daniel Kahneman basically observed and wrote extensively about our brains have two modes of working. He called it System 1 and System 2. You can think of a System 1 as kind of the intuitive. It's fast, it's automatic, it's effortless, and it draws upon the brain's connected knowledge. So if I ask you what 2 + 2 is, everybody could answer, right? You don't have to think it. The knowledge is there in your brain. You have built up the hierarchies for that knowledge in the past. Similar would be driving a car, similar would be doing some tasks, knowledge recall, anything that you can do almost instinctively, you have learned it and internalized it, and you're able to draw upon it. There's a second mode, which is slow, deliberate, effortable. That's the thoughtful. That's like the deep thinking. And this doesn't draw upon the brain's connective knowledge. It builds the brain's connective knowledge. This is how you learn. And it's by putting the effort in, your brain switches into a different mode. However, your brain is lazy and it doesn't want to go here. It wants to just do fast and automatic things. So if there's a way to do something fast and automatic, and you can imagine where I'm hinting at, like AI, your brain would love to just stay in System 1 mode. So you have to get it into System 2. And that requires like the gym workout, right? You go to the gym to work out. So the problem is that those study techniques are largely System 1. You can do them without doing much deep thought. You can listen and note take and just kind of transcribe what you hear, but you're really not giving the brain the challenge to sort of think and reorder and question. So System 2 just wants to stay asleep, and it is. Turns out these do not let System 2 sleep. Your brain has to wake up and you have to start thinking about things. If you want to recall something that you're just learning, it's going to take a little bit of effort to recall it. And spaced repetition is like that workout over time. And over a little bit of repetition, that knowledge goes in and becomes your long-term knowledge. And then System 1 can draw upon it really quickly. It's how we learn math. It's how we learn to read, to write, pretty much everything. That's not changed. Okay, so fun question. You go to a gym and you have a good workout. What do your muscles feel like as you have this really good workout? There's this phrase, like if you've been working out in the past, it's like what would that feeling be in your muscles? Okay. It's feel the burn. Doug, you were probably maybe typing out it. So it's like you feel your muscles burning. Now it's not a pleasant feeling, but it tells you that your muscles have said, hey, you're pushing me harder than I'm used to. I'm going to use up lactic acid. I'm going to feel this sense of burning. But you look for that because it tells you I had a good workout, right? So if you don't know something and then you want to know it, I love this diagram. You're going to go through a series of ups and downs to get there. But there's a feeling in your brain as you try to struggle to learn something. What's that feeling feel like in your brain? How would you how would you feel it? How would you describe that feeling? If you think back to you're truly trying to learn something and your brain probably had this sensation, what would that feel like? Okay. So the word that I like to use is frustration, right? Gee, it was so easy when the teacher did it. Now I feel frustrated. Why is this so hard? Blah, 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 right? Well, that's what learning feels like. That's your brain telling you, your brain, that you are in this mode where nothing is really making sense and the brain system two is woken up. It takes effort, but that's when the real learning occurs. And it's unfortunate that we never got there, that people, I didn't know this when I was growing up, right? Like you are meant to feel frustrated. That is the signal that your brain is learning, and you want to stay in that zone as long as possible. Because the longer you can stay in there, the longer you learn, right? The more you can, your muscles feel the burn. But a lot of people would give up when they feel frustrated because they signal it as a sense of like, I'm not achieving. And then they go eat an Oreo cookie, right? So you want to feel that sense of frustration. Okay, so there's another theory that actually talked about this. Is there anybody who knows the theory that refers back to zones? Okay, there's sort of like 3 zones of learning. There's passive, yes, ZPD, zone of proximal development. So basically, Vygotsky figured out, or he just observed that there's a passive learning, which doesn't work, and that's zone 1, that's Keenan's. That's the intuitiveness. There's this zone up here which is too hard, and it's analogous to going to the gym and lifting more weights than you can lift. Your muscles can't lift it, so there's no point. Your muscles aren't going to improve. But ideally, you want to stay in the zone where it's not passive, but it's not too hard. And what he said was very interesting is the most effective learning is at the upper end of your learning capability, like the upper end of the zone. And what he observed, this was only achievable with the assistance of others. So if we're back in the gym, imagine you have the personal trainer there, or a coach, or a tutor, and then you're at the upper end of your limit, or your sort of the most optimal learning. Well, that's social constructivism. That's the foundational theory of Moodle, that we learn better by learning with each other. We learn by doing, we learn by watching, we learn by teaching each other, and we learn it in a structured way. Okay, so let me ask you this. What social environment is optimized for learning? Anyone? What social environment do we have that is optimized for learning? Okay, yes, universities. It is the classroom, right? It's a structured environment where we walk in and the brains turn on, right? And at the center of the classroom, there is a teacher. So I stole this slide from Martin Duguay-Amis. He gave it a while back. You can kind of learn things on your own, right? You can kind of like learn small things, but to learn something really big, like a language or like a new discipline or, training for a new job that has new skills, like you really do need a structured environment. And you need somebody at the center of that. You need a human, right? The teachers are so important in this role. And again, I'll talk about it a bit more. Okay, so now I would ask, is online education changing? If this is how we learn, how is online education changing? Is it getting better? Well, I think there's like 2U, this is a company that raised millions of dollars, was going to revolutionize online learning and filed for Chapter 11. They didn't do so well. And I think it was because they did more on technology than they did actual learning. The challenge we have today with Teams or Zoom or Meet, these are more information delivery platforms. So knowing what you know right now, what I just described, if you're watching, that's largely passive learning. Information delivery, if you attend a lecture and you just watch or watch a Zoom call, this is why I'm putting way more effort into engaging you, because I would like you to take away something from this that helps you evaluate in the future whether AI makes sense for learning or not. So the results are low learning outcomes. You don't get out of zone. You don't get out of into system 2. It's not much of a workout. These tools do not understand engagement in the sense of engaging to learn. So you end up using third-party tools to complement that. I've lost track of how many times I've asked somebody, like, do you use Teams for teaching? And then they'll start telling me all the third-party tools they use to augment the engagement. Of course, what they're saying is the platform has no idea what I'm trying to do, so I have to use other tools to do my job. So you end up using other tools and increase complexity, and your data is bleeding off to other systems. A lot of times students will not share their webcams, so they're invisible, and you have no analytics. You have students there, someone's there, but it's like Ferris Bueller, anybody. And I would say the educator finds it difficult or impossible to give personalized feedback. So you end up teaching the screen, not the students, okay? It is the way a lot of teaching has been done. That doesn't mean that's the way it has to be done. It doesn't mean that there's not a better way. And this is what's driven us to build BigBlueButton over the years. Okay, but yet some schools are thriving online. So I'll give you a couple examples. Minerva Virtual Academy is one of the fastest growing online schools in the UK. They finalist in some international awards. They're 100% online. They're over 1,000 pupils right now. There's another UK organization called Activate Learning. They deliver math and English online to higher ed. And they found that they get a full grade point higher for their online classes than the equivalent in-person classes. Interesting. There's Red Hat. We all know. They have found that when employees undergo Red Hat training, they're between 25% and 50% more efficient. That's the structured teacher in the center training, but they do it all online. So what is the common thread here? Well, it's not passive learning. Basically, it is active learning towards authentic engagement. And that authentic engagement is the human to human connection between the learner and the educator, right? None of us are going to say, wow, I remember that AI that I used to learn. It really inspired me to become. No, you are going to get inspired and challenged and encouraged and rewarded and get feedback from humans. We're just not designed to learn from machines. It can augment learning in very specific ways. But I would argue when you go into the class room, you're not using AI, you're using your brain. And when you use AI, you have to be really careful about this part right here, which is cognitive offloading. And it's really hard to do that, but it's way easier to do it when you have somebody teaching you. And again, that's the educator. Okay, so I think the future virtual classes kind of breaks down into like a before, during, and after. So you'll notice I've not talked about any product so far. I've not talked about any features or capabilities. I'm really trying to ground a framework for how, if you use this framework and someone comes up to you and says, oh, I think AI will improve this, you can ask yourself, are we doing a workout here? Like, is this making learning easier? Because that's the slippery slope. I think before, you have content. If you think of what the virtual classrooms will look like, you have to create content to drive the virtual classroom, right? In the class, you need built-in tools for active learning so students can engage. You need analytics from that engagement so you can see which students are struggling. And then for the students that are struggling or accelerating, give them feedback in the moment. And there's lots of nuances to this because students are at different levels in your class, and maybe you want to teach them at different levels or challenge them at different levels. Hard to do in a physical class. Turns out it's a little bit easier to do it in a live class. And then afterwards, you want to get some correlation between what went on in the physical class and what's going on in the LMS in Moodle. So you don't want these two systems to be disparate. You want them to be talking to each other. And use that analysis to help you better give feedback to students, challenge them, reward them, and so on in the future classes. So BigBlueButton can do a lot of this. This is kind of what we've been working on over the years. And Moodle is really good at analytics, and Moodle has really good reports as well. So there's some places here that we can work together. So if I'm going to take us back to the things that I've talked about, you have an environment, the classroom, where you want to get students active learning. And according to Zavosky, you want them in the zone where they're learning at the upper end of efficiency. It's like the most effective workout, right? If someone told you, like, you could, something that took you an hour to learn, if someone told you, take that hour workout and you could do the same results in 30 minutes, you're probably going to sweat some more. But if it's informed with a deep understanding of how our muscles work, probably will work out. If you can learn effectively up here, this is informed with a deep understanding of how our brains work, it's going to be more effective. You want to engage the students in purposeful effort. You want to monitor their progress and give feedback. That's basically an effective class. Less talking, more doing, more monitoring, more feedback. but setting them up so that they can do it themselves. Okay, so if I broke this down, you can imagine a class starts off with some building of relationships at the front. That's why I was asking you to draw on the board, like where you are in the world, ask a little bit of stuff for you. You would preview what had done before. You'd review what was done before. You would do a preview. The main segment, you would review that, talk about next steps. And in that main segment, this is the scaffolding, and there would be the active learning, and then at the end, you do active recall. This is how the class sort of, I think how a lot of good teachers, based on the feedback that I've talked with, structure their class. So essentially, from the point of view of the students, you want them to realize the more I apply myself, the more frustration I feel, the faster I learn. That's the insight. And the instructor's role is to apply and give feedback. So it is now and only now that I talk about BigBlueButton, because now I can basically map what we do into that framework. If I've convinced you that this is one of the most effective ways to learn online based on brain theory, based on the structure of the class, based on what you want to do in terms of like human-to-human connection, then really that guides the rest of the presentation. You want built-in tools for active learning, like multi-user whiteboards, smart slides, polling. I have a few slides on these. Shared notes, reactions, breakout rooms, a few more. As the students work on it, that interaction generates analytics, and that analytics gives you insight to which students are actually active and which students are learning, maybe based on quizzes and so on. And that information allows you to give feedback to this class, to the group, or to the student. They get to this plateau where they learn, and you want to cycle this as much as you can during the class. Now, I'll talk more about BigBlueButton. So we do have this built-in whiteboard, which came out of doing multi-user whiteboard. It is no separate product, it's built in. There is ability to use multi-user whiteboard where we have this cool mode where I can turn off the ability for you to see each other's cursors. So could I get everybody to point at where Australia is? Okay, so what's interesting is I can see everyone's cursors, but you can't. So we call this visual assessment. If I had a map of a diagram or a schematic or something, I wanted to say, okay, are you with me? I could literally just start asking you to point at various places, and I, as the instructor, can see if you're with me or not. We have the reactions, so learning should be fun. So you should be able to give, some reactions in the reaction bar. There's shared notes. So there's a collaborative area built in where the instructor can put an agenda and the students can collaborate. That collaboration yields over to the breakout rooms as well. For the breakout rooms, we updated this a lot over the years. We have the ability to have BigBlueButton bring back the shared notes and the whiteboard. So you can put students into breakout rooms, have them collaborate on a topic, give them the topic. So you can assign a default slide to each breakout room. They work on that. You can monitor them, and they'll come back to the main room, and the slides that they worked on, plus the shared notes will come back, and you have them present. The polling, the results for the polling come in live. So as the polling occurs, I could see the live results coming in. We have something called Smart Slides, which is many times, you're doing your presentation, your class, and you're running a slide deck to help you structure it. And those slides may have like points of time where you want to ask them questions. So you could basically say, what are the rings of Saturn made of A, B, C, D, E? And in another product, you could say, wait a moment while I type this quiz question in. Well, we already read the text into memory for screen readers. And what BigBlueButton does is picks up and says, this looks like a question followed by A, B, C, D, E. I'll just give you one button to do a poll. So let's try this. Did Einstein discover the atom? Yes, no. So BigBlueButton read the text already into memory, realized I had yes, no in it, and allowed me to do a yes, no question with one button. So did Einstein discover the atom? Bet you didn't think you were going to get asked some science questions when you came here. So it turns out, no, Einstein didn't. He discovered relativity, but Rutherford and others discovered the atom. What are the rings of Saturn made of? Okay. Obviously, it's gummy bears. But this is another example. I'm not typing anything in. But there is a correct answer. And BigBlueButton does know what the correct answer is because there's like a little hint after one of these. So the correct answer is ice. You can see there's a checkbox next to it. And the reason is there's 2 underscores at the end of this, but those underscores are the same color as the background. So students can't see it, but when BigBlueButton reads the text in, it knows that, there's one of these choices with 2 underscores. I'll take that as the indication this is the correct answer. That was quizzing. We can do this interactively as well, but I really like doing it when it's in the slides. It's so much easier. There is a dashboard built in. This is the analytics part. So we have this dashboard that would open up in a new tab, and it would show you all the students who are there, plus their activities, plus their responses to polls. So you do not have to remember this. Like, the platform should tell you how long each student's been there, how active they are, and so on. And we take it one step further. If you also quiz the students, then you have kind of 2 axes. You have an activity axis, the students who are more active are on the right, and the students that respond and get more quiz questions correct are higher up. The students over here, these are great. They are active in your class, they are responding, they're raising their hands, they're chatting, they're talking. And even if they're not getting things correct, that's fine. You know, they're learning, right? Make mistakes, don't be passive. You know, any students over here, if they're getting everything right and not doing something, they're probably bored. And the students down here, well, they're the ones that are trying to fly under the radar. They're not active, they're not responding to polls. And in a class with video conferencing systems, they would remain invisible and they wouldn't learn. But the way we say it in BigBlueButton, there's no back of the classroom. It's impossible for students to hide. So if you saw, let's say, a student wasn't responding to polls and you said, hey, Sam, don't worry if you don't know the answers, give it a shot, and it's how you learn. If Sam was used to a video conferencing system like Teams and Zoom and wasn't sharing their webcam, they would be like, how is it possible the teacher's aware of me? I'm not sharing my webcam. But in BigBlueButton, we don't rely on webcams. And that's the difference between us and a video conferencing system. A few more slides. So I said these were different. Like, what tools are these 3 companies using? Well, Minerva Virtual Academy is using BigBlueButton. Activate Learning is using BigBlueButton. And Red Hat uses Teams. No, I'm joking. They use BigBlueButton. Teams would not work very well. So where does the integration, where are the potentials for future integration? Certainly at the analytics and certainly unified reporting. So I'll give you a little peek ahead. So if you had data and you want to bring this into Moodle, we can already bring in, I'll say we, Blindside Networks, have developed the pieces to extend this integration so that you can bring the roster in and see who's absent. BigBlueButton will keep track of it for you. You could pull analytics from Moodle inside of BigBlueButton. So maybe you want to have every student know information about the student, every educator know information about the student by just simply clicking on their name that already exists in Moodle, but if it was available at the educator's fingertips, could help them give better feedback. So it might be like if a student seems like they really don't know what's going on and you find out, maybe the last time they logged into Moodle was like 3 weeks ago, you're like, oh, okay, And maybe Moodle knows something that's important, like the assignments, the student has not put their assignment in or that. That information could be surfaced to make it easier for the educator to give personalized feedback. We set it up so the educator could customize those values for reporting. So this is data from Moodle data from BigBlueButton going back into Moodle. Moodle has a built-in report system. And if we put in all this data that we have on the student, like attendance data, that data could now be generated inside of Moodle. So you have data from BigBlueButton, data from Moodle in one report. Again, this is what you get to when you build a platform for online learning, both asynchronously like Moodle and synchronously like BigBlueButton. So where can AI help? Okay, there are 2 places AI can help. I don't think it should be helping during the class. That's like going into the gym and having someone else lift the weights for you. Doesn't sound like it's going to be very effective in a workout in the gym. Turns out it's not very effective for your brain. You actually want to feel frustrated. But what you can do is give the instructor back the most valuable resource they have, which is time. So AI could certainly generate content for the virtual class, obviously reviewed by the educator, but generating questions at different levels and that's a bit hard, takes a lot of time. AI can help with that. And what would you do with that extra time? You would spend more time with the students, giving them feedback. And after the class is over, the content of the class could turn into some form of active recall and spaced repetition. And again, AI could create that. So an example might be in the class so this is a prototype that we did. After the class was over, a quiz appears after the instructor has approved it. And that quiz has questions that were based on the content of the lecture. So this would be a form of active recall. You're trying to actively recall it, and spaced repetition you're doing over time. And it could be tracked by the Moodle quiz bank, and the instructor could see the results and gets a sense whether the students actually followed through the whole session. So where I think to get to is authentic engagement. And that is the sense that you are connecting with the students and the students are connecting with you as the educator. You want the students to feel like you are aware of them and care about them. And that gives them more reason to show up because the teacher's going to be there. There's a live teacher who knows me, cares about me, and expects me to show up to class and be present and active. Hard to replace that with AI. And I don't think we'd want to. Some other things that we've been exploring, like visual submit. This one seemed obvious to us, that if you wanted to have students actually pick up their pen and do something, how could you have it so that students could share with you, the instructor, what they did? Maybe they have a QR code in their phone that they could point at their page. Maybe they hold their page up and it figures out the bounding box. So this is one thing that we're exploring to basically make more authentic engagement. There's a future concept we have called whiteboard vision, where you could actually see everyone drawing and small little whiteboards, so you could see where they're doing in terms of a one-on-one assignment. And then maybe you could just join them and talk to them directly in the class. So kind of like a direct discussion with students. And the idea that you could be monitoring multiple breakout rooms, but get some content and some feedback from the breakout rooms in the main room. So if there were 4 breakout rooms, you would know which one to go to. Okay, let's do some active recall. Can someone tell me what this diagram related to? You can type in the chat. Or you can unmute yourself. But what was this diagram referring to? This first one. Cognitive offloading. So that's the slippery slope, right? That is the invisible event horizon, that if you overuse too much AI or eat too many Oreo cookies, your brain will just stop learning. You won't feel it as much. You won't know it as much, but the more AI you use to help you to do the learning for you, the less learning you do. What does the system 2 refer to? Okay, so now I'm doing spaced repetition. I'm doing active recall and spaced repetition here. If anybody hasn't figured out what's going on, like this is like, so what does system 2 refer to? Okay, I see someone typing, so I won't give the answer just yet. Yes, your brain wakes up and it starts to get into deep thinking, and you now start to learn. What does that feeling of learning feel like? Frustration. Yes, that's a good feeling. Your brain is working. What does this refer to? Higher level learning. Close. It's the zone of proximal development. It's the upper end of your ability to learn, like the heaviest weight that you can still lift, or the upper end of grasping new concepts. It's usually done with the help of others, and honestly, that's the most effective place to be when learning. Would you rather spend an hour learning something or half an hour learning something? Well, if you can really get into that zone where you're like lost in thought. And there's other words for it as well, which you might have heard the word flow, right? If you are in the zone, if you're feeling flow, it means you just have enough knowledge that you've accumulated in the past. I would lead a little bit on Bloom's taxonomy for this, but if you have enough knowledge to kind of just grasp what's going on, then there's this really pleasurable experience comes up. And it kind of goes in 3 phases. First off, we start off with curiosity, where you are like, I'm really curious how this works. And then it sort of switches to the hunter mode. Like you're now hunting for the solution. You can smell the prey, you know, you can almost grasp it. And then there's a third kind of mode, which is flow, which you are like, time just disappears. You are so lost into solving this problem. It's one of the most pleasurable feelings, to be honest. I think many people in their careers, especially knowledge management careers, derive a great sense of pleasure from trying to grapple with a problem, knowing that on the other end, there's this really strong sense of satisfaction. It's just unfortunate that, social media has trained the generation to not experience that sense of satisfaction. It's all short term, short term, short term. And the short term is only system one. The brain is not getting rewired, and it's harder to get to that sense of learning. But that's what the teacher can do, right? That's what a classroom can do. What does this refer to? Okay. So this is the human at the center, and this is sort of like the learning. So I want to do something here, which is, again, one more thing. I'm going to do this interactively, which is a way to do active recall at the end. So we built a plugin in BigBlueButton called Key Takeaways. So for 2 minutes, I would like you to write what you think are 2 or 3 key takeaways. Like, what are you taking away from this session? And then we're going to get each other to vote on the key takeaways. But take a moment and write what you think the key takeaways are from this session. And I need everybody to do this part, even if you like don't think you really captured it. Like, what are the key takeaways? So Israel, you should see a dialogue in front of you asking to prompt, like write something down. Is that correct? Can you nod if you see it? Okay, I think what I'll do is I know we're coming up to the end, so I won't try to do it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's funny, if we don't get enough people, the voting pool isn't very much, but oh, there we go. So we got 3, 4, awesome. Okay, everybody give me at least 2, and then we'll transition to voting. You've got 30 more seconds left. Okay, 20 seconds. Give me a few more. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we'll transition to voting, and then each of you will be shown 2 random key takeaways from others, and all you have to do is say which one do you think was a better key takeaway. And from this, we'll get a ranking. So instead of me summarizing the session for you and what I thought were the most important items, I'm going to get you to summarize it, and that's going to tell me where you guys thought were the key things during the session. So you're just going to get random pairs and just vote which ones you think are the better key takeaways. Okay, so I can see the votes all coming in live. So for me as instructor, I'm kind of really curious now, like what people thought were the key takeaways and where they thought. Okay, so I think we have enough votes. So I'm going to end the activity, and now I'm going to share it anonymously. So everybody should have like a little name that was given to you. So nobody can tell who gave it. But Resilient Dolphin, really good. Your key takeaway got the most votes. An Amazing Penguin, you got the next. You're all winners, by the way, but you can sort of see how other people thought. So that is another way of BigBlueButton provides some structure to do active recall at the end of the session by getting the students to think, review by others, review others what they thought, the social constructivism part. I see the analytics coming back live. And again, this is what you build when you build a virtual classroom. All right, so that is the all right, that is the end of the session.
Great. Well, do we have to mention? I mean, in class, this is awesome. I mean, the first time I've got myself a leopard. It's randomly assigned to you, or is it house?
So what was
Is
random?
it randomly?
And when you say
Is it
randomly,
random?
what was which part was random?
I mean, the name that assigned to you, is it
Oh, it was
randomly
random.
assigned?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it random? Oh, okay, that's nice. Oh, but what's the hint between? I mean, behind the name suggests. Is it? Do we want to just keep? I mean, as a lecturer, I mean, as a teacher, do we want to keep them, the vote hidden, or you know,
When
do
I
we?
when I published them, I had the option
Mm-hmm.
of doing it anonymous or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have
Ah,
not. I could have just unselected it, and you would have seen the names.
I see. Oh, but that's nice to have new names though. And at the end of the day, we kind of like think who's is which one is who. So yeah, great. Thank you so much. Well, right now I think we're going to open the session for Q&A. If there's any questions related to Fred's presentation, is there any questions that you would like to ask? If it's not, BBB alone, or perhaps on the active engagement using the Big Blue button. Any questions?
No worries if not. I'll put my email address in there. You can always reach out to me. And Israel, this was a this I enjoy giving these presentations because I enjoy interacting with educators around the world. I
Thank
hope you
you.
learned something from it. Take away from it, and just know that there's people out there like Moodle and certainly myself and the other folks around the world behind BigBlueButton, that really do want to get to quality learning. And I think it's just going back. It's just not forgetting just how we really learn and embracing that. And technology can help, but it's just assistive. The educator is still needed there, and the learner still needs to do the work to learn.
Yes, that's right. I mean, from the start of your presentation, it really grabs me off, as I said, in my reflection, the quotes that I always use, that learning is not a spectator sport. You won't learn anything if you just watch, being a bench warmer instead of going there and do things. Even if it's just a while, so it does help in learning as well. So, yeah. Fred, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
That's such an insightful and engaging presentation. Truly appreciate you taking your time and share your expertise and practical perspective on this. So, I think we don't have any questions, and it's very clear cut about all this. When you mentioned about ZPD, not many people, when they use a tool, they want to connect to all this learning theories as well, because at the end of the day, a tool is just a tool, and we have to make sure that we know how to make full use of that tool. Otherwise, it's just a tool. It won't be helping, but it's just it should be helping us to make sure that we gain more in our teaching and learning. So thank you so much, Fred. And if you don't mind sharing, giving me the shape. Everyone, if you don't mind, can we take a photo, perhaps?
We have a shy class. I
Yeah,
I think we're
but I
fine. Like if you could take a photo of us, but I feel like do share, like if you get, I hope all the people who signed up get a link to the presentation, share it. It it's
Sure.
it's important that I think other people see how they should be looking at teaching online and learning online.
Sure, sure. Okay, if everyone's shy, it's just leave me and Fred. So, yep. So let's wrap up this session. Thank you so much once again, Fred, and everyone for joining this session today. And if everyone's would like to have more of this session in the future, we do have our next session, and this is for May. Do register and for you to have to get the link for the session. And yeah, let's connect. If you want to connect to us, you can email us at hello.my@pukunui.com. So once again, Fred, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, thank you so much. Have a good day, have a good night, have a good rest, and happy working, happy weekend. I'll see you guys once again, perhaps in the next session. Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.